what you have when you have nothing is, in fact, something incredibly valuable, which is your limitations and your lack mean that you have to produce creativity.
I don't think you need to be really passionate about a cause to start a business. I do think you can just start a good business as long as you do have that mission and drive.
Business is hard, and you're going to need something to drive you. And at the moment, this language of purpose and mission is the best thing we've all got to grab to it.
You had to be so passionate about the mission that you're solving. And that was the only way to build a successful business. We are back with another episode of the Do As I Say, Not As I Did podcast, where we answer real and often insane questions from Reddit about growing your startup. And today, we're joined by Daniel Flynn, the co-founder and managing director of Thankyou. Thankyou is one of Australia's most impactful social enterprises created with a singular mission to help end extreme poverty through consumer products. He's not only built a brand stocked by major retailers, but also pioneered a pay what you want bestseller book that raised $1.5 million in its first month. I actually also saw Daniel speak at a conference late last year, and I've never seen such an engaging presentation, and I'm sure it's a story that's been told a bunch of different times, but Daniel really, was able to connect and bring so many people in this room on this just like really emotional journey. So, I mean, you would have seen Dan's products. You've probably used Dan's products. They're fucking everywhere, like on shops and in every bar you go to, So like, I'm super psyched to have you on, man, and I'm super excited to see, how you contribute to these questions today.
Man, thank you for having me, and I'm looking forward to it as well.
Awesome. All right. So the first kind of segment that we do now is that I'm just going to list off 10 things, and I just want your immediate reaction. I want to see how you think about these kinds of things. So just one or two word reactions to these things. All right. The first, losing faith.
The end. Because when you lose faith, that's the end.
Yeah. Activism or brand?
The best brands are activism.
Cool. All right. I'm actually super keen on this one because I actually have no idea how you're going to sit on it. Profit.
Potential.
All right. That's a nice way to say it.
I nearly said the enemy. To be transparent, I nearly said the enemy. The enemy. Profit, the enemy. But it's not the enemy. It's the potential, but it could be used for good and for harm.
Yeah. I mean, if profit's the enemy, just spend more money on shit, So I like potential. Yeah. All right. Ego.
Kryptonite.
Ooh. Huge risks.
The job.
Mother Teresa.
Deeply inspiring.
Running on empty.
I think that's like the Achilles heel for entrepreneurship and leaders.
I actually never use a phrase. The next one, I'm super psyched. I've never said this one to anyone before, so I'm keen to see how you feel. Love.
Everything.
I don't know why. I just knew you were going to say that. I don't know why. It just got telepathically transferred to me. I love that. I agree. Conviction.
It's like one of the most important, if not the most important. It's one of the most important ingredients.
And lastly, a runway.
I mean, take off.
Nice. All right, man. That's good. I just love doing that. It's just fun. I feel like it's interesting to see kind of like where your brain goes and all these different things.
Yeah. And I would love to see where my brain goes on those, at 9 a.m. when having kids, man. I feel like the afternoons you're slower than you used to be, but I did my best.
It was good, man. I really loved it. All right, let's jump into the Reddit questions today. So this first one is called, how can a small startup compete against well-established industry leaders? Are there any examples of small startups successfully overtaking or significantly challenging well-established competitors in any industry? What kinds of mistakes do large, dominant players tend to make that can create opportunities for small startups to take advantage of? I mean, this person's looking for examples, but I mean, this is from several art 7186, but you are an example, right? Like you've come into like such a crowded space, creating like products that like very much exist, and you're just fucking nailing it. So how can you do that, right? Like, surely when you came up with that idea, people telling you like, this is insane.
It's interesting as you're reading the question out, Joe, and I appreciate the compliments on our products, but I think it's true across like every industry forever. There's this beautiful quote, I don't know who says it, but it's not the big that eat the small. It's the fast who eat the slow. And we have this idea that like, oh my goodness, we are David versus Goliath. How could you win? But the answer's in the start of that. It's David versus Goliath, and David wins, right? Because it turns out that what you have when you have nothing is, in fact, something incredibly valuable, which is your limitations and your lack mean that you have to produce creativity. It's the only way you can win is through radical creativity. And the challenge with big and established is there is not an environment of creativity because they've got budget, they've got resource, they've got almost everything. And that is an enemy of creativity.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only thing we have, right? Pace and the ability to be different when we're small. Whereas, and you know, when you have a ship that's moving, it's so much harder to kind of turn that ship around than if you're swimming, right? You
Yeah.
just stop and go the other way. Um, but I guess I'm interested, like more tactically, what does it look like, right? Like you've got
Yeah.
this product and you want to get into Woolworths, and they've already got thousands of products that you're coming up against. How do you even start there? How do you go up and compete against these like such well established brands, especially when it's not even straight to consumer?
Yeah. I mean, our story is really interesting because at first we did the traditional thing. We knock on the door of the retailer, we get the meeting, we present. And this is where we got, not just at the big supermarkets, but every retailer in this country, we got a no. And it was a kind no. It was like, we like your mission. We were telling them we're here to sell products and we're going to give all the profit to help end poverty. They're like, that's nice, but you're up against the biggest brands in the world. They are investing huge marketing dollars and marketing spend. And the more we pushed up against that problem, we realized, well, we do have a problem because the gatekeepers to the consumers, they don't buy into us. They don't buy into that we could deliver something that works on shelf. And so then the problem was actually quite well defined. How could we prove to them that this could work? And our second idea was, and at the same time, get so much awareness that when it pops up on shelf, people buy it. We didn't have the dollars to buy the awareness, and that's probably most startup small enterprise problem. It's like we don't have the money to buy all the ads. So this is where creativity over indexes and wins. And in this particular moment, 5 years into our story, for those that know it, we launched this video. And in the video, we said, for 5 years, Coles and Woolworths have said no to Thankyou. And in the video, we said 2 weeks from today, we're presenting to both of them. And right now, we're launching the Coles and Woolworths campaign, and it's a call to action asking people to upload onto their social channels that if people stock, oh, if Coles or Woolies stock Thankyou products, that you would buy them. And in this moment, we saw our kind of hardcore fan base jump on, record videos, singing, dancing, rapping. We saw their friends, we saw other people join, we saw media report on the story, and we did put some thought into this campaign. And so we had these two helicopters that flew, one in Melbourne, one in Sydney. They flew for half an hour around their head offices with these 20,000 square foot signs. One said, "Dear Coles, thank you for changing the world," in brackets if you say yes. And the other one was the other one was for Woolworths. And so we are circling their head offices. We are also trying to get PR and media. We're trying to take this from, you know, online to offline and then kind of get that media virality. And those who know the story, it worked. So when I say it worked, Coles said yes 5 hours after the meeting, and Woolworths was 3 hours. But it didn't just work in getting the gatekeepers to open the gate. When product hit the shelf a month later, it went wild. And we had this sort of consumer built up anticipation. People helped to get it there. Therefore, they didn't just buy one hand wash, they bought everything. So, in fact, actually, at the launch, there's all these photos of empty shelves because as soon as it would get stocked, people were buying heaps to give it out because they were so proud they put it there. This for us was our way of going up against a Dove or Colgate Palmolive, Palmolive's hand soap. It was like, let's turn up with a way better product at a really good price with a really great mission, and let's get people to help put it there, and then those early adopters to help spread that word. And that was our hack to, I think we had about 20 grand for our marketing budget, right? That's how we competed, and we ended up becoming the number one hand wash and holding that position for 5 years, not because we had the money to do it, but because we used creativity and a restructuring of maybe the way you should do things to get a different result.
I love that. I mean, it's like what an insanely great story, and just like really really interesting and effective ways of making it work. Were you scared though, like with some of those swings, right? Like, because when you put those videos out there, like they could just really fall flat, and it ends up maybe being worse off for your meetings.
Yeah, and this is where going back to the very first, like the question here, I think a lot of the challenges for big organizations is they're not willing to take risk. So that fear of failure at a big entity level, at a board level, management level, there's all this like reputational risk, there's real financial risk. That's where they become more conservative, insert Kodak, right? People become more conservative, whereas the startup is willing to come in and disrupt and take risk. And so we took we took risk in the early days. We continue to. And the challenge as we scale is to continue to have the courage to take risks for our mission. And so your question, like, how does it feel? It felt real hard every time. You put yourself out there on an idea that might fail. It's a vulnerable thing to do. I remember the day we launched the helicopters, I was at the airport. So the helicopters took off, well, the Melbourne one took off from Essendon Airport. It was this like really cold morning. It had been raining till like 5 a.m. We'd finally got approval. These are going up. I remember standing under the helicopter and watching that sign go up. I knew how big it was in theory, but man, I was like, what are we doing? Oh, like this is huge. Like this, I didn't realize how big it is. I can't believe we're flying over Melbourne, over the head office. Like this is, and like doubt. Like, what have we done? Who are we to do this? What if this fails? But this is the human condition, and like this is the process. And I say that I really believe the world is, yeah, the world is waiting for more and more people to do stuff like this, to have courage that you might fail, but it might work, and that's when things change.
Yeah, I love it, man. I don't think there's anything I can add that's going to be better than that. So I think to several up, can startups compete with industry leaders? Absolutely. Like it happens all the time.
Yeah,
All of these industry
yeah,
leaders were startups, right? Like they started somewhere,
yeah,
and really the way to get there is it's just with speed and doing something different, being creative, and it doesn't that doesn't mean it's easy, right? Like, and it doesn't mean it's going to work every single time either, right? You really need to put yourself out there and take big swings that might push you over the edge to fail, but really, if you don't, you're doomed to fail anyway. So it's
yeah,
like, what choice do you have but to just fucking go for it?
yeah. That's it.
All right. Well, several art 7186, you have been advised, and we'll keep on going. So, Dan, is it worth building a startup today? I hope this doesn't trigger anyone. I'm just looking for advice from people with real startup experience. Sam Altman said you should only start a startup if you're compelled by the idea. Others say the best startups weren't built to make money, but to solve a real problem. That makes me wonder, do startups succeed more by accident than ambition? If your goal is wealth, should you build a startup today that could be a unicorn? This is from Adventurous Sign.
Uh, Interesting question. Hey, there's a lot in that.
There is. I think we
Where's your
actually
mind
might.
going?
I actually think we might sit on different sides of the coin here. And I used to kind of buy into the rhetoric that like you had to be so passionate about the mission that you're solving, and that was the only way to build a successful business. But the more I meet people on my journey, there are just people that just fucking love running businesses, and what they're passionate about is building a business. And I actually think you can be passionate about building a business, not just the problem. Like there are phenomenal products that make a ton of money in tax. People probably aren't that interested about like I'm changing the world because of tax. But then
Yeah,
on the other side, there are businesses, right, that are like, thank you, that actually truly are changing the world, and there is real mission driven, like ideology and value being created there. And like my business is
yeah,
an ed tech company, like there's a real mission there. But I used to be all in on this idea that it had to be this like mission driven thing. But I think you can just be, I think you still need a mission of where you're going, but I don't think you have to be like, my whole fucking life was destined for this, this like, one experience I had where you hear these amazing stories that people started. Like there are really successful founders out there and successful businesses that come of people who just wanted to start big businesses and they did.
mm, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because my mind goes to those people are still mission driven. It's just not necessarily the public narrative of that insert tax business we're making up here. It's not evident to everyone on the outside, like, oh wow, they've they've got a real mission and purpose. I would say the person leading, driving that thing does. What is that mission and purpose? Maybe they're like, I want freedom. Running a business is not a great way to get there in the early days at all, but like I want perceived freedom. I want to help people find a really great culture and business to join, and I want that to be big so there's lots of people. So on the outside, it looks like you know, a tax business. In fact, I've one of the great opportunities I get sometimes is to go and speak to companies, and I'm often surprised by walking into an institution or a company that I perceive, yeah, they're not, doesn't sound very missional, doesn't sound very exciting, and the culture's insane. I'm like, wow, I totally misread the room on that. And and I think it's because you can create amazing culture around mission and purpose. It just doesn't have to be super evident to everyone on the outside. And for some people, they run great businesses and their mission and purpose maybe isn't outward focused or noble. It's very selfish and self-focused around power or money. It's still mission. It's not
Yeah.
one I'd subscribe to, but I think it does take a deep drive because I mean, when you start a business, you are going up against the reality of 90% of businesses fail or startups fail in the first. You may know this stat better than me. I was going to say 3 years, but then the scarier part is it's like 99.9%. So like the majority never get over $1 million a year in revenue.
Mm.
So we hear these success stories. If you're going to go up against that statistic, which you are the day you decide to start something, and then you hear people like, pretty sure it's Elon Musk, but you tell me if it's somebody else who describes entrepreneurship or starting business like chewing glass. And you sort of, I was waiting for the other half of the analogy, but it wasn't. No, it's just like chewing glass. Like
Yeah.
that's it. That's the whole analogy. I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I actually resonate with that feeling. And if you're going to chew glass, if you're going to like wake up every day to continually problem solve and feel like the fire is just always there, you have to be driven by something. And I would say that drive is that purpose and that mission. But I agree with you, how that publicly sounds and resonates, you know, could look very different.
Yeah. I mean, I really like that interpretation. So I guess like I think it's pretty common for people to think of like, oh, we've got a mission for the
Yeah.
mission to be altruistic. But I never thought about the fact that like these people do have missions, right? Whoever started, gambling companies, they've just got a fucking mission to make a ton of money. And so like, and they do, right? Like, and they work hard for that. And they rally people around that kind of mission.
Yeah.
And they're happy to sacrifice other shit, like other people's maybe like well-being for their mission, but they still are really fucking rallying people around a mission, and they're doing like an incredible job of
Yeah.
that for their mission.
Yes. Yes. And then I think what we have in the world right now, because purpose and mission are just so talked about at every conference and every kind of everyone's
Yeah,
talking about it. Now you have people trying to put mission to, say, gambling, being
yeah,
like, oh, we exist to help communities connect more and flourish.
yeah,
And it's like, do you mean you're running, you know, gambling little centers in the back of the like the pokies? It's like, yes, but people come together in the local community. Yeah. Do, do you think maybe we should just call it what it is, you know?
yeah,
And or you have uh, I mean, to get a little bit controversial, Meta would say that their mission is to connect people and connect communities or connect the world better.
yeah,
And part of me is like, I wonder if it just should say the mission is to make the most money possible for the shareholder or shareholders, because I get that the other sentence feels better to work towards, but the way they're playing out their business at scale is absolutely they'll make a decision for shareholder benefit versus connecting people. Like they'll definitely, whether it's their own research around, you know, teenage girl suicide rising because of, the way they built algorithm and they didn't wind that back and they could have, but that wouldn't be good for the shareholder value. So like I think what we've got a phenomenon right now is everyone's like trying to find this beautiful language to paint up, like purpose paint their thing
Mm.
so it sounds good. At the end of the day, it's like we probably just need some people to be like, the mission is to make the most money we can for ourselves or the shareholder or shareholders. And then it's probably the world's job, like, for us as a global population to decide what are the good missions and the bad missions, or what are the ones that we should rally behind and ones that we should say, actually, your mission to like build the biggest gambling empire kind of creates these unintended consequences, which are bad. And so, anyway, now we're going
Yeah.
deep.
No, I like it. I mean, I just I like that the idea of what do you call it? What's the paint?
Purpose
Purpose
paint.
paint. Purpose paint. I fucking
Yeah.
love that. Such a good analogy. Like we are purpose painting everything, and I do think like this rhetoric is so strong that you need to have a fucking purpose to make a successful business. Like really, what people are saying is like you need to have an altruistic purpose to build a
Yeah.
business, and I don't think that's true. You can build a financially successful business with any kind of purpose as long as it drives you to just fucking get up and chew glass in the morning, like you
Well,
said.
okay. Yes, but here, let me do a take on your take.
Okay.
I would say, and we may sit on different sides of the
Yeah.
coin on this. I would say if your purpose is profit purely, yes, you can build a very successful thing, but only on the measure of profit. Because
Yeah, for sure.
in most cases, that profit is at the cost of humanity. It's at the cost of either it could be team well-being, stakeholders, supply chain. So yes, yeah, it's at the cost of people.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I mean, I don't think like if you decide you want to build, a profitable gambling company, you can't then also say you're doing good for the world. Like it's like you're not creating good impact as well as all of that money, right? There is a trade off and an expense you have to pay somewhere. But I mean, if you that's what I said, financially successful, right? Like by that measure, if
Yes.
that's the goal. So I do think, and I guess like I think we're looking at maybe like the two ends of the extreme right now, like true altruism versus
Yeah.
money hungry gambling companies. But I also, if I bring it back to adventurous sign and this question is like, I don't think you need to be really passionate about a cause to start a business. I do think you can just start a good business and build a good business as long as you do have that mission and drive to do something, and that might be to build a business as long as it goes down that path. And I don't think if you don't have a cause, that necessarily means you're going to be. Maybe you disagree with this. Though. I think that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to create a business that's bad for the world. Like unless you are on that side of the spectrum, right? It's profit over
No,
people.
no, 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 no. No, I think one of the, okay, so I'm a big, so capitalism.
Yeah,
So we run a social enterprise, which isn't anti-capitalism. It essentially, we are trading on the model of capitalism, except the best way I would describe a social enterprise is like capitalism in check. So unhinged capitalism, Meta's a great example. Big four banks a good example of like we're during a cost of living crisis. The banks are making some of like record profits, right? And so you're like, oh, that's weird. But that's sort of what happens when you get capitalism unhinged. It often pops up during low competition, so monopoly, duopoly, or just low competition. You get these sort of anomalies, and I think that's what can happen when you're like, let's just profit at all cost. That's what happens. You end up having this trade-off. Now, someone who's like very values driven could start a really profitable enterprise that pays people really well, looks after people, planet, and you know, I agree. It doesn't have to sound like a social enterprise for you to be able to do that. It could be, I mean, I know a great business in New Zealand. It's a tax business and they're making millions of dollars a year. They're actually giving the founders giving it all or giving the majority of it away. And I love that.
I guess that raises another question for me on where you sit on this, right? So, say you want to start a business
Yep.
that is good for the world in some kind of way. Maybe it's like sustainability, right? You want to make the world a more sustainable place. You want to contribute to climate change. Do you think that that's impossible if you set up your entity as a company? Because a
Nope.
company has a fiduciary responsibility to
Ooh.
create shareholder value, and that means
Yeah.
profit.
Yes, so that, and this is where B Corp has emerged around the world. And B Corp is, it's more than a certification and it's sort of a operating system on it really protects that part of the shareholder kind of conundrum here. So
Mm.
shareholders can't get sued. Sorry, board members can't get sued for making a decision that was, for sustainability because it met the B Corp kind of parameters. And B Corp is a product of this problem that you just outlined there. And I think that's important because uh, the profit at all cost, not that anyone would say it, but it's just, it's
Yeah,
healthy returns. It's like, well,
yeah,
who's defining healthy and who's paying for that?
yeah,
So if you are Apple and you have the most cash on hand of all companies in the world at one point, or just a lot of companies, my question is like, does some of that cash belong to definitely questionable parts of your supply chain who didn't make much cash in the process of helping you make that cash? And I would say yes. I would say you're breaking a global social contract, like a humanity contract in doing that. Not that you shouldn't have lots of cash in hand, you should, but probably a bit less.
mm.
And this is where we get into like if you want to build a company to last versus like I want to make a quick buck, these are two different ideas. You can make quick cash, sure. But if you want to build something to last, and that's a different like then I think you need to think about like foundations and building blocks so that the tower doesn't topple when it gets too big. And we see that when the foundations aren't strong.
Mm. I love it, man. I wasn't sure where that question would go, but I think it's kind of like landed a pretty good spot. So if I try and bring it back to the original question of do you have to have a mission and a passion to start a successful business? And the answer is yes, you do. But that mission for you might mean different things. So it could be altruistic and you can build a company that is good for the world and good at matching your values. Or if your passion is and your mission is just money, you can build a financially successful business because you need that passion, that mission to drive you through whatever it is that the journey is going to be, as long as it is measured by whatever your values are at the time, right? If your values are just money at the cost of other people, you can make a successful business that makes money at the cost of other people.
Uh, yeah, yeah, I think I'm nearly there on that.
Okay.
And trying to land the question. It's more where my mind goes on this question is like, man, business is hard and you're going to need something to drive you. And at the
Yeah.
moment, this language of purpose and mission is the best thing we've all got to grab to it.
Yeah.
But sometimes people think, oh, well, that's like, thank you. Yes, that'll help because it gets you up to go again because altruism. It could be like, I want to put my kids through better schooling than I ever went through.
Yeah.
That is going to help you stick at starting that business and making it successful than just the pure money measurement.
Yeah.
Um, because, yeah, and that's what I mean by mission and purpose. It could look different for different people, but you need something to help you stick through that ruthless glass chewing phenomenon.
Yeah. I like that way of describing it. Like starting a business and running a business is just so fucking hard all the time. And then you get to the next level and you think it's going to get easier. And then it's just an all new level of hard in a way that you could have
Yeah,
never imagined. And then you finally get to
100%.
you get good at doing something. And then that's the next level. And you suck again because it's hard at the next level. And so if you don't have something that's really fucking anchoring you to want to push through that. Also, I actually think most people shouldn't be entrepreneurs. I think everyone should probably be more entrepreneurial. But like the journey of being an entrepreneur like sucks a ton of the time. And if you love that suck, then you should do it. But if you don't, then and if you don't have that like strong fucking driving factor, then you shouldn't go down that path. And I guess like there's another question that I think about quite a bit, Dan, is that do you think entrepreneurs need to have a chip on their shoulder to be successful?
Yeah, I, I haven't done enough thinking about the psychology of it, but I could see that could be true. My journey, and I'm like, you know, when someone says you can't do that or you won't be able to pull that off, it's like a red flag. Like it's a red flag to a bull, like in a good way. It's
Yeah.
like, why not? Like
Yeah.
we were in a meeting a while back and we were pitching this future product for Thankyou. Big boardroom, very established business. And I said, this is what we want to create. And everyone laughed and they were like, we couldn't do that. Like you got to like. I just walked out of there going, "We're going to do it," and not. It wasn't just to spite them. It was their laugh was more about. It wasn't personal. I laughed too because what we're proposing to make doesn't exist and would be so good for the world and is so anti the establishment, it's a joke. Like how could you do that? And
Yeah.
to me, there's a part of entrepreneurship that's going, let's find possible. And that almost starts with someone telling you, you know, you'll never be able to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think, like, I strongly think that every founder that's like successful that sticks at it has something they're trying to prove, either to someone else or it can be themselves, right? Like for me, like I've got to prove to myself what I'm capable of, and I can't stop until I've like fucking ticked that box. And I don't know if that box is even tickable, but I do think every founder is trying to prove that thing. You know, that person that said it's not possible, or I don't know, some kind of deep seated daddy issue, or it's, you know, some kind of deep seated
Yeah,
personal, you know, insecurity. I think someone's trying to prove it to someone.
yeah, and I wonder, I could be wrong, but I wonder if in the life of entrepreneurship, if you think about it like a marathon, in that first leg, some of that first leg up is about proving the chip on the the chip on the shoulder or proving someone wrong. But to sustain and to create things that last, maybe there's this process of like maturing or this process of like uh to get to that next level or phase. it and this is where my mind goes to purpose more and more.
Mm,
It's like something's got to drive you. Like I look at, I mean, it's always risky talking about anyone this day and age, especially Elon Musk.
yeah.
I'm gonna do it. He's definitely controversial at the moment, but and I don't know because I haven't asked him, but I wonder if his intrigue about interplanetary life, which is actually a purpose. It's like he's driven by this idea of I think we need this. Now others say no, 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 and you never can. That'll probably fuel him more. But there's also a purpose versus just him saying, um, I think we could get to Mars, and everyone's saying no. He's like, all right, I'll prove you wrong. Like I think I'll prove you wrong won't get you to Mars. I think if you deeply believe, no, I think we need to, that's what helps you get to the. And maybe I'm talking about the difference between im impossible becoming
Mm.
possible versus, hey, I run a profitable business that does well. Maybe that's what I'm talking about here.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think there's levels to it, right? Like I do think that what drives people on to go through those first layers of eating shit, like that eating glass, I think that's a chip on the shoulder that gets you there. But at different levels for different people, they prove it to themselves or to the person. You know, like I proved it, you know, to myself. I proved it to, you know, my fucking fourth grade teacher. Right? I'm not shit for this reason. Like they prove it. Then they're all faced with the decision of like, do I go again? And
Yeah,
that's a different
totally.
decision. And that's like, do I take my business to the next level or do I do a new business? And I think something else drives you there. But I do think like
Mm.
starting out, like there's like kind of something a little bit wrong with founders to like want to make them go through like what is, you know,
Yeah,
like a
yeah,
weird like
I
bad
fully get
journey.
that. I agree. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Okay. All right, man. Well, adventurous sign. I don't know if this is useful, but you've been advised. It was interesting at the bare minimum. That's really all we have time for. So we'll just come to the last section, which is plugs. So, Dan, what have you got to plug? And you want to plug? Thank you. Is there a book you've read recently that you loved, or you know, a song that you're loving right now?
Oh man. So look, I did a little subtle drop there of there's a new thing we're working on at Thankyou, and the success of Thankyou is in part internally there's amazing people working on amazing ideas and products, but actually the other part of it, it's in the last part of Thankyou is the word you, right? So people, the campaigns we launch are always people driven. And so there'll be one, probably early next year that drops. And if you're following on any of our social channels or website, you'll see it in that moment to everyone. Joel, even you hopefully you'll be
I'll
like,
be there.
oh, what? What? They're doing this? That could fail. Oh, are you kidding? And I reckon it's our biggest, scariest moment ever. But I sort of, going back to the boardroom laughing, I play out the other side of that. The industries change, world changes. So follow along. Would love to have you supporting the obviously byproduct like we love. That's how this works, right? We raised $18.55 million profit and given it. More people buy, the more we give. Um, but there's a few books that are very impactful. And here's one that I haven't read recently, but it's probably one of the more memorable. And I often, when someone joins Thank You, I'm like, yo, we got to read this book. It's called Do, so Do Purpose, Why Brands That Do Good Matter More. And it's one of those cool like picture books with quotes, and like you could read it in half an hour, and you could spend your entire life reading it because like you got to like just sit with ideas. That book is really cool for entrepreneurs because I think it'll challenge you around, yes, purpose, but it really has this flavor of David v. Goliath and this idea of, uh, yeah, disruption.
I love it, man. I'm going to make a note. I'm going to buy that book. All right. Well, I guess on my side, bye. Thank you. It's great. I've got it here. Dan, do you have thank you products all through your own house?
I sure do. I sure do. And I have current ones, future ones, and like I'll use some going, oh crap, I forgot we're testing that. I forgot to give my feedback on that one. But yeah, we're thank you product heavy.
All right. I love that. Well, that's everything. So, mate, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Thank you for the conversations. Thank you for the pushback, right? The push and the pull. And I feel like we got to some, really interesting conversation today.
Man, thank you for the questions, and yeah, I love the format of this. I think it's really cool, and yeah, pushback. I mean, it helps me too. Like it refines your ideas and thinking, and I got some stuff to think about jumping off this.
I love it. Well, this has been another episode of the Do As I Say podcast. We'll see you all next week.